Sean Griffin here from Kettlebell Transformation, and today I want to go over how I went from never having abs in my entire life to having a completely shredded six-pack in only 6 weeks. In fact, this transformation right here happened over the course of 35 days. So here's exactly how it happened. But first, before I get into the details of how I was able to transform my body like that, I just want to say that if you're looking for a quick fix, even though this says six-pack in 6 weeks, this presentation is not going to be right for you. So my agenda today is to give you the exact workouts that I went through during this transformation, as well as the exact nutrition plan that I followed. And then I also want to give you the daily habits that I executed in order to make this change. And then at the very end, I want to show you the one part that pretty much no one is going to admit when it comes to body transformations like this. Okay. But first, let's get this part out of the way. It wasn't always like this for me, meaning I didn't always have, a physically fit, strong, muscular body. This is me over here on the far left. In college, I went to Indiana University. I enjoyed a few Budweisers myself. At this point in time, I had absolutely no body confidence whatsoever. It was very soft, no muscle development, hardly worked out at all. And the truth is growing up, I can remember in fourth grade weighing in at football, and it was the first time that I was considered to be overweight. And this was the first time that I knew I was fat. In middle school, I wouldn't even take my shirt off at the pool because I was so embarrassed about how chubby I was. Got made fun of a lot for it. It was something that always, was on my mind. And it wasn't until I found kettlebells and really got into fitness that I was able to, over the course of many, many years, produce this type of transformation. Here's me right after I ran the Chicago Marathon in 2009. You can see how skinny my arms were compared to here in 2019 when I had obviously developed some muscle at that point. So it wasn't always like this for me in terms of being muscular. Second, this plan, it works for others. I'm not just saying that, here's a transformation I was able to make in my own life. This is a transformation that I've seen countless other men make in their own lives as well. The fact is that there's a very simple system that you can put into play that's repeatable and that's been proven to work over and over and over again to take guys from, not having development in their midsection, not having the type of muscle that they would like to have, to being pretty darn shredded. And it's much, much simpler than you think. So before we get into exactly how I produced these results and how we've produced it for countless other men in our kettlebell transformation system, I just want to get three things out of the way. There are three reasons that most guys are not succeeding in their fitness. The first is they're just not sure what they need to do. So if you're watching this video, you might be asking yourself, what do I actually need to do to get results like that? And the truth is like there's so many things out there. There's so many different styles of fitness that you could utilize. And honestly, these could all work for you. But the problem is that most guys, they're looking at all these different things and they either don't know what to choose, and so they don't do anything, or they jump from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and they never create any real momentum and they never create any real progress in any of these options. So they stay stuck. The second reason that most guys aren't fit is they don't have a workable plan. A lot of times when guys think about trying to get into great shape, they try to do way, way too many things. And you might have seen this before if you've watched any of mine or Grant's videos, but here's a just kind of an 11-step plan to get fit. Give up all your favorite foods, run 10 miles a day, lift weights 6 days a week, don't eat any carbs, don't drink any alcohol, take a daily sauna, take a daily cold plunge, meditate for 60 minutes a day, talk affirmations into the mirror for 30 minutes while staring at yourself naked, read 100 pages every single night. And lastly, because every guy who's fit can do it, learn how to play the violin, right? And this is obviously a big joke, but the thing is a lot of guys, when they think about trying to get fit and trying to get into shape, they come up with this huge overbearing list of things that they need to do because they think if they leave any single detail out, they're not going to get the results they want. That's not the truth though. And the third reason that most guys fail to stay fit, now, some guys might be able to get fit on their own, but a lot of guys will fail to stay fit because they don't have any real support. They're on an island all on their own. They're trying to do it all on their own. They don't have anyone checking in on them. They're not checking in with anyone else. It's just them all by themselves. And oftentimes, that can get pretty lonely. They can feel like Pablo Escobar here from Narcos, right? Just all by themselves on an island. Nobody wants to feel like that. So there's kind of an old way that we think about doing things, and then there's a new way that I want to talk through on this video. And the big question is, right, how do I get there? If we want to produce really remarkable results that you can really see in the mirror and that you feel proud of and that others will look at and say, I want results like that. What do we actually have to do? Well, here are the exact workouts that I was able to, or that I did during that transformation phase. I want to go over how to keep your workouts extremely simple if you want to get the best results. Here's how we look at it in the Kettlebell Transformation Program. Here's what we teach to all of our clients. Here's exactly what I did when I made that transformation. Train 4 days per week. Okay, you don't need to do more than that. A lot of guys think they need to train 6 days a week, 7 days a week, but your body needs to recover, right? So recovering in between sessions is just as important for building muscle as the actual training is. So training 4 days a week is a sweet spot because we want to create consistency over time. Training swings and get-ups only. Now, will that work for everyone? Maybe not. Is that the only thing that you should do if you're looking to get shredded? Totally not. You could do a million different things. You could do CrossFit. You could do bodybuilding. A lot of things will work, but choosing one thing is a really good idea if you're looking to get the best results possible. For me, that was training swings and get-ups. I chose 2 bells, a moderate and a heavy bell. I had years and years of practicing my technique to make sure that my technique was perfect so that I could handle that volume. And then the way I set it up was in week 1, I did all my reps with moderate bell. And then every 2 weeks or so, as my body adapted, I exchanged one set of my moderate with one set of my heavy. And that's how I was able to increase my weight over time. Now, another caveat I'll say is do a good enough warm up to get your joints nice and loose and to activate your nervous system. This way, you have the best chance of staying healthy as you train. It might be a good idea for you to do some lighter sets before working up to your heavier sets. So this is exactly what my workouts looked like. I did one hand swings for 100 reps. I used a moderate bell of 40 kilograms and a heavy bell of 48 kilograms. And I did Turkish get-ups for 5 sets of 1 and 1 with the same weights, moderate 40 kilogram, heavy 48 kilogram. That's it. That's all I did. I didn't do anything else, literally nothing else. My workouts took me 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes if I was really, taking a ton of rest, if my body felt a little bit beat up or if I was just feeling lazy that particular day. Now, one thing that's worth noting here is when you look at 40 kilogram, 48 kilogram weights, those weights might not be accessible for you if you're just getting started out with kettlebells. That's a 90-pound kettlebell and a 106-pound kettlebell. So relatively heavy. And if you're just starting out or if you're pretty early on in your journey, those weights might not be accessible. So that's going to factor into what we talk about down the road here in this presentation, which is kind of what no one will tell you, but just keep in mind, you need to obviously use the weights that you're capable of using here. Now, here's what it would actually look like. So phase 1, again, this was all moderate. Phase 2 would be 2 rounds with moderate, 1 round with heavy, 2 more rounds with moderate. And when you think about rounds, let's think about this as like, here's 10 swings on my left and 10 swings on my right. So that's 20 total. So then 5 rounds would be 100 total. Same thing for the get up. Here's 1 get up on my left. Here's 1 get up on my right. And then you do that for 5 total rounds. Now, early on in this progression, typically what you're going to see is, if you're going from, let's say, 5 rounds with your moderate bell to 4 rounds with moderate and 1 rounds with heavy, you may only need 1 week here where you do all 4 sessions at this. And then you're ready to go the next week up to, one of your sets with your heavier bell. So maybe you do this for 1 or 2 weeks, and then you'd be able to progress to phase 3. Well, as you start going through this, let's say you're going from being able to do, 3 of your sets with heavy and 2 of your sets with moderate to jumping into this phase 5 where you've got 4 rounds with heavy. You might need to stay at this phase 4 for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it may be. Always be conservative in terms of jumping up to that next phase where you layer in another round of heavy. That way you really give your body time to adapt. So this might not be a clean 6 weeks. It might not be a clean 12 weeks. Maybe this is something that takes you 18 weeks or each phase takes, a different amount of weeks. The goal here is to make sure that you don't jump to the next phase until you feel like your body has adapted to the number of rounds that you're doing here. And when you say a phase, right, and you look at this would be Monday do this, Tuesday do this, Thursday do this, Friday do this, right? You do the same thing in the phase. So you do 3 rounds with your moderate, 2 rounds with your heavy. You do that same workout 4 in a row, or maybe even 8 in a row, or maybe even 12 times in a row before you move to the next one. This particular style of working out that I'm explaining here, probably not good for you if you're somebody who gets super bored and you think you need to, constantly be switching things up. Now, with that said, maybe it's exactly what you need if you're somebody who gets constantly bored and feel like you need to switch things up. Because for me, the exciting part about this is jumping up to that next weight and making it feel like, hey, something that I could barely do for 1 round in phase 2 is something that I can now do for all 5 rounds in phase 6. This feels really awesome. And this is the way, by the way, if you're training with, maybe 20 kilogram, 24 kilogram bells, this is exactly how you can go from training with those bells to training with 32, 36K, 40K, 48K. You can just keep running this in cycles over and over again. It works really, really well. And that's all you have to do. if you do this and you do swings and get-ups, you're covering a lot of bases, right? What I always say, is to focus on the essentials and eliminate everything else. This is simple and sinister, right? This is the simple and sinister progression from Pavel Tsatsouline from Strong First. It's a ballistic, meaning explosive, powerful conditioning, using your full body to snap into a powerful ballistic move. And then there's a grind move, which is the Turkish get up. This is where you're stabilizing, you're activating your musculature, you're getting under heavy load, right? So it's called a grind. So you got the ballistic and you got the grind. When you're doing these two things, you don't need much else, right? And that's really important because in order to produce the type of results that I'm going to show you on this next slide, you don't want to be doing too much with your workouts because you're going to have a lot of focus, obviously, on nutrition. So here's what the transformation looked like for me. Again, this was 2 months, right? This is a picture in July. And then 2 months later, here's, the same guy, same body, but obviously I stripped off a pretty decent amount of fat. Now, at this point in my life, I had never had abs. I'd never been able to see more than 2 abs. And in about 6 weeks, I was able to see all 6 abs. Now, is this strictly from training like that? Absolutely not. It absolutely isn't. So I don't want to sit here and lie to you and say, hey, if you do simple and sinister, if you do swings and get-ups, you're going to get abs, right? That's not how it works, because the truth is I was doing swings and get-ups before this. That's where I got to here, right? What was missing was nutrition that was dialed in. But the point is you don't need more than what I was doing. Was I doing direct ab work? Was I doing crunches? Was I doing hanging ab raise? Was I doing other things that you would think of as focused, dedicated ab work? Absolutely not. I didn't do any of that stuff. All I did were swings and get-ups. Of course, I was using heavy enough weight for me to produce this adaptation. But a lot of times, if you're somebody who's already training, you have this underneath. You just have too many layers of body fat over it, right? And which is why you can't see this. Workout summary, keep it simple. It doesn't need to be complicated. Guys try to do way too many things with their workouts. And this hopefully is proof to you that all you need to do from a workout perspective is focus on the basics. So here's exactly what I did from a nutrition standpoint. I went through a 3-phased approach. This is the same 3-phased approach that we teach to everyone in our Kettlebell transformation program. The first thing that we did was focus on quality. The second thing that I did was I focused on quantity. And then the third thing that I did was I customized it based on my specific body type and based on the goals that I had. So here's what that transformation nutrition progression looks like. Week 1, I ate from a very simple food list. I'll show you it in a second. I just focused on eating those foods and eliminating anything else that was not on that list. Week 2, I focused on basic hand portions. This is something that we took from Precision Nutrition. It's a way to eyeball your calorie intake. And then weeks 3 and beyond, I started weighing my food and tracking my food at MyFitnessPal. And I was able to get precise with my calories and eventually my macronutrients. It worked like an absolute charm. So here's the food list that I ate from, right? This was how I dialed in my quality of foods. Now, I chose from protein, from fats, from carbs, and from veggies. Importantly, I didn't cut out any type of macronutrients. This wasn't like keto where I gave up carbs, or this wasn't something where I went super low fat and I wasn't eating any fat. I was eating across the spectrum here. Now, I didn't eat all of these foods because I don't particularly like all of these foods, but the foods that I did like, I ate from those categories. Protein, I kept it nice and lean. So that's one of the things that can be advantageous to do if you're in a period where you're trying to cut fat, is to eat lean proteins. So it's not that protein that has fat in it is bad necessarily, but when you're eating very lean protein, like lean turkey breast, lean chicken breast, lean ground beef, lean pork tenderloin, 0% Greek yogurt, when you're eating really lean protein like that, what it allows you to do is it allows you to get a measured amount of additional fat into your diet. When you're eating meat that is pretty fatty, sometimes it can be really difficult. Like if you have a steak that's marbled, it can be really difficult for you to understand how much fat is in that. So what I did was I ate lean protein, and then I had a measured amount of added fat. I eat plenty of carbs, as I'll show you here in a second. I'm a leaner guy, just naturally, so thinner bones. I'm able to handle more carbohydrates. So I was eating a lot of sweet potatoes, a lot of white rice, a lot of oats, a lot of fruit, and then veggies, obviously eating plenty of those as well. The reason this works well, right, is because a lot of guys have a ton of stuff in their diet that is not healthy. It's not the best choice to be making, whether it's, unhealthy proteins, whether it's just processed foods, whatever it may be, whether it's too much calories coming out of the beverages. Because one of the things you won't see on this list, obviously, is caloric beverages. Because what I did during this period was I just had water, coffee, tea, sparkling water. That was it. I didn't drink any alcohol during this particular cut phase that I went through here. Not that you can't, because you certainly can, but I chose not to. I went strictly with this food list, and I didn't stray from it. The second week, what I did was I took the food that I was now eating. So I had cut out all the garbage and I was only eating what I consider to be a pretty clean, right? I would consider this to be relatively clean. Now, of course, there are a ton of different foods that you could put onto this. And maybe some people would look at this and say, well, some of these things maybe aren't clean. That's fine. You do you, right? This list worked really well for me. From there, I went to hand portions. Now, again, this is straight from Precision Nutrition. We picked it up from their coaching program. This works extremely well because what this allows you to do is it allows you to use your hand as a guide to getting your portions roughly right from, a protein, carbohydrate, fat, veggie standpoint. This allows you to get close. It's not going to be precise, but if you're doing this on a consistent basis, the truth is you don't need to do much more. This will get you 90% of the way there. So palms of protein for your proteins, you got fists for your vegetables, you got cupped hands for your carbohydrates, and you got thumbs for your fats. Incredibly simple. You just put it on your plate. Now, the thing you can do here, and this is what we teach guys, is the goal here is to have at least 3 complete meals per day. What a complete meal would be, in our opinion, is you have each of these elements on your plate and you've measured it using your hand as a guide. So if you're getting 3 of those a day, it's going to be a really good start. 8 palms of protein is also your goal, with the idea here of being that a palm of protein should be roughly 20 grams. That's a good place to start. Maybe it goes up to 25 to 30 grams based on your current weight. But if you're getting 8 palms of protein across your day, probably like 2 palms per meal, if you're spreading it out into 4 meals, that's going to be a really, really good start for a lot of guys. It can get you a long, long way. And so this is kind of what that might look like if you're going on hand portions. This is a Greek yogurt bowl that I would make every single morning where I knew that my portions were correct. Here's a done for you meal, right? You can see my palms of protein in my turkey. You can see my cupped hands of carbs. You can see my fists of veggies. Here's a smoothie that I would make every single day where I knew that I was getting 2 palms of protein, roughly, even though it was in the form of Greek yogurt and protein powder. And then here's what a dinner would look like. And what I always tell guys when they're in a transformation phase, and this is something that I did during this phase, try to eat the same things as much as you can. Because the more you're eating the same meals over and over again, it might get a little bit boring again. But the thing is you're going to stray maybe once on the weekend, and that's fine. Because if you've been dialed in all the rest of your days, it's okay to have that. But if you're all over the place with your meals and you're constantly trying to find that next meal that you're going to eat, a lot of times that's going to take way too much willpower. And eventually something's going to break and you're going to either order out or you're just going to, splurge on a bunch of pizza or whatever it may be, or you're just going to eat with whatever is put in front of you rather than having some thought process to it. So when you're going through a transformation phase, my suggestion to you would be eat the same foods as often as you can. Now, the one thing you can do here is you can definitely optimize this for your body type when it comes to the hand portions. So as you saw back here, what we suggest to start is 2 of each of these. But if you think about customizing this for your body type, let's say you're like me, you're kind of a taller, you're a leaner, you're a skinnier boned guy. This would be considered an I type, whereas maybe a broader guy like a football lineman, power lifter type of guy who's naturally bigger boned, this would be more of an O type. Right. And so for the I type, you can just go more carbs, less fat. And so what that might look like here is maybe you have 3 cups of carbs and you only have 1 thumb of fat. And that would be a really good way to customize that. Keep your proteins and veggies the same. If you're a naturally bigger guy, you can keep it really, really simple and you can go less carbs and more fat. And so what that might look like for you, maybe you only do 1 cupped hand of carbs, and maybe you do 3 thumbs of fat. It's not precise, right? But it's going to get you really close. It's going to get you 80% of the way there for sure. And it's an easy way for you to adjust based on your body type. So that's a really simple way that you can get almost all the way there in terms of eating for your body type in the right proportions, in the right quantities, just by using your hand as a guide and eating from a simple food list. So a lot of times what we found is guys don't actually need to go further than that. That can work really well. And long term, that ends up being what works for most guys because not everyone is going to want to go to the advanced tracking, which is the next phase. Now, I believe you should go to advanced tracking if you're looking for the best results possible and you want to learn the most out of your eating. And so when I went to advanced tracking in weeks 3 through 6 of my transformation that I showed you before, what I did was in week 3, I tracked my total calorie intake. So I wanted to get a calorie target, and I'll show you exactly how to get that in a second. In week 4, I had a calorie target, and I also had a protein target. And then in week 5 and beyond that, I gave myself full macronutrient targets, and I tried to hit each of those with precision. So here's exactly what that looks like. So advanced tracking, this is where we're actually going to weigh our food. So you're going to get a food scale, you're going to take your food, you're going to put it on a scale, and you're going to enter that in to an app like MyFitnessPal that can track your calorie and your macronutrient intake. This is something that at the time I had not personally done. So for me, there was a ton of learning in it. Now, if you're somebody who's never done it before, I would not suggest jumping straight into this, because what I've seen is when guys jump straight into weighing and tracking food and they're also trying to change their diet at that time, it can be really, really overbearing. They can only do it for a short period of time. It seems like it's way too much and they just get totally overwhelmed. What's a better approach that we found is to first improve the quality of your food. So just focus on eating from the food list. That's why we suggest doing that for the first week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe even longer. You're just eating from the list. You're getting into the habits of making better choices with your food. Then for 1, 2, 3 weeks, you're going to use your hand as a portion guide, because that allows you to start eating the right foods in roughly the right quantities. The reason this works so well is because once you go to actually weigh your food on a scale, you're already doing what you need to be doing. You're already eating the right foods. You're already getting roughly the right amounts. Now all you're doing is you're just taking the food and putting it on a scale and verifying that it's the amount that you want, or really just tracking it to make sure, okay, maybe I need to have slightly less of these carbs to hit the actual targets that I have. So that's why that works so well. That progression is a really important part. So here's what you would do from a calorie target perspective, right? What I tell guys is you want to just start with your basal metabolic rate. So that's the amount of calories that you would burn just at rest, no additional activity. Now, I have a calculator. I'll actually include a link to this down below, but there's an easy way, and you can find BMR calculators on the internet really easily. Just search for BMR calculator and you should find something that's really easy. All you need is your weight, your height, and your age, and it'll show you exactly what your BMR, your estimated BMR would be. And then you can usually, what you can do is you can say, what's my activity level? And then based on your activity level, there will be a multiplier of calories. And then based on your goal, whether it's to maintain, lose 1 pound a week, lose 2 pounds a week, or build muscle, you have a calorie target. Now, this is built into our calorie calculator. You might not find that on one on the internet, but again, I'll link to this down below in the comments or in the description, so you can easily just use this on your own. Now, I chose medium exercise sports 3 to 5 times a week. That's what I chose as my activity multiplier. So my estimated BMR at the time when I was 35, 190 pounds, 73 inches tall, was 1850 calories. Right? So take a 1.55 multiplier. So to maintain that weight, I would have eaten 2,868 calories. That's how many calories I would be able to eat and maintain my 190 pound body weight. Now, I was wanting to lose 1 pound a week. So in order to lose 1 pound a week, the calculation here would be minus 500 calories per day. So 2868 down to 2368. And so that's exactly what I did. In my first week of tracking calories, my calorie target was 2,350 calories. So that's what I was trying to hit every single day. I was weighing my food. I was tracking it in the app. I wasn't too worried about my macronutrients at that time. I was just trying to get my calories to 2350, as close as I could get them to. So I did that for a full week. The second week, I gave myself a protein target. Now, a good rule of thumb, and this isn't perfect, but this is a great place to start. 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So for me, I had my ideal body weight at 180. That's where I thought, hey, okay, maybe if I lose 10 pounds of body fat, I'll be shredded. Turns out that I had to get all the way down to like 172. But nevertheless, 180 was my target for protein, right? So now for the second week, I actually brought my calories down just slightly. I brought them down to 2,300 here. So now I was trying to hit 2,300 calories, and I was trying to hit exactly 180 grams of protein each day. So that's what I did for the next 7 days. And then after that, week 3, I gave myself full macros. So what I did here was I said 235 grams of carbs, 70 grams of fat, 180 grams of protein. So this is a split of 31% protein, 41% carbohydrates, 28% fat. That gave me a total of roughly 2,300 calories. So that was the way that I chose to split out my macronutrients. And this might be how you would kind of think about starting based on your body type. Again, if you're a taller, leaner, thinner framed guy like me, then that's where I went. I was roughly 30% protein, 45% carbs, 25% fat. You can see that I gave myself a little bit more fat and a little bit less carbs. To me, eating that low of fat was just too hard. My food was super bland and I just kind of felt like I needed a little bit more. So that's what I did. If you're somebody who's more in this mesomorph, you carry muscle really well. This is like, your guy who in high school, had a 6-pack and played middle linebacker, that type of guy. Now you might be someone who's carrying some extra fat on your frame, but if you got all that fat off, you would be this body type. Good place to start would be 30% protein, 40% carbs, 30% fat. If you're a guy who's larger, bigger boned, you can't handle carbs as well. 35% protein, 25% carb, 40% fat. Again, these are just starting points. This might be where you start, and you measure and you track this for a couple of weeks and you see how it goes, right? From a target standpoint, this is what my goal was. My goal was to make my daily charts look exactly the same for calorie intake and macronutrient intake. I wanted to hit my targets at least 6 to 7 days per week. And for the first 4 weeks, I didn't have any misses. I wasn't drinking. I was trying to hit these targets dead on because I wanted to see what that level of precision would do. Now, is that sustainable long term? Probably not, honestly. If you've got social events, if you've got a life, if you've got kids, if you want to be able to have a beverage every now and then, you're probably not going to want to weigh and track your food forever. But if you have serious body fat that you want to lose, then this is the fastest and most predictable way for you to be able to get results, right? And then the other thing I'll say is if you're going to cheat, make it a cheat meal, not a cheat day. Try to plan for it. There's a very easy way to adjust your calories on a weekly basis to plan for cheat meals. That can be something that can be really effective and it can keep you on task. Now, the key daily habit that surrounds this entire tracking, honestly, from the very start, from day one all the way through weighing and tracking your food and full macronutrients, really simple. Get on the scale first thing in the morning, every single morning. So you want to wake up, go pee, step on the scale with no clothes on, just in your boxers, and record your weight. It's so simple to do. It's such a great way to hold yourself accountable to, staying consistent with your nutrition. You don't need to get obsessed with the numbers that you're seeing on the scale, but you do want that data because if you're tracking the food that you're eating and you're also tracking what's happening with your weight, it becomes very easy to start to manage that number. If you're not tracking that stuff, then you really don't know what's happening underneath. You don't know the results that are happening from what you're doing with your food. So when you're in control and you're consistently, you find that macronutrient and calorie balance that works for you, you should fairly consistently see your weight going down in little tiny jumps, right? Down 0.2, 0.4, down, 0.1, 0.3, small little jumps down. If you're out of control, you'll know it. First off, you'll just know it because you'll feel yourself eating off. You won't be tracking because you've gone out to eat or whatever it may be, or maybe you splurged on something. But when you start to get on the scale, you start to see that, right? This is what happened during my birthday weekend, the jump from 169.4 to 175.2. That's overnight. Yes, right? So you might not know it, but this is what happens. Now, did I put on 6 pounds of body fat here? Absolutely not. Did I have 6 pounds of excess inflammation and food still left in my body after a huge night out? Yeah, I did. That's what happens, right? And so getting yourself accountability and getting control is about looking at that number every single day. So if there's nothing else that you take away from this, one of the most powerful things that you can do if you're trying to change your body type, change your body composition and your body weight, is just get on the scale first thing every morning. Don't hide from the number, right? Don't make a big identity out of it. Just get on it, record it, understand what did I do yesterday that might have caused this spike, or what did I do yesterday that, and now I'm seeing it go down. Okay, put that on repeat, right? So we want to track that every single day. Now, really quickly, let's just talk very quickly about how you can customize your macronutrients based on, what you have going on. Maybe you've got a big weekend. Maybe you want to have cheat meals. Well, here are 2 great examples of how you can customize for extra carbs. Let's say, for instance, it's summertime and you have a weekend coming up where you're going to a big barbecue and you want to be able to maybe eat and drink at that barbecue, not quite on your plan. Or maybe you just want to have the freedom to be able to drink a couple extra beers or, have a side of mac and cheese or whatever it is, right? Well, here's what a regular week might look like for you, right? Proteins, carbs, fats, the days all look the same, right? From an intake standpoint. Well, if I want to have a high carb weekend, I can do that pretty easily. 250 grams of carbs on my weekends. That's going to be a big difference versus having 175 grams of carbs, right? That's 75 extra carbs per day. That can be a couple of drinks. That can be some meals that have some solid carbs. That could be a dessert, whatever it might look like. The way to do that is you simply take the carbs away from your weekday. So now you're just going to take 15 grams a day away from your carbs. Pretty easy. You're not even really going to notice that. And you're going to build up that excess that you can have on the weekend. Now, you'd have to have a little bit of a fat exchange there too in order to get this 250. So on the weekends here, you're going to reduce your fat intake, right? So instead of having 75 grams of fat, you're going to have 60 grams of fat. That won't be that noticeable either because that's only 15 grams of fat, right? So that's going to be just like leaving out a tablespoon of ghee or coconut oil from something you'd normally cook, right? Or leaving out the peanut butter that you normally put in your smoothie or whatever it is. It can be pretty simple to make that exchange. You wouldn't want to do that every day, but it's not bad to do it for just 2 days. And you can see here that changes the calorie intake, right? So now instead of having 2075, I'm having 2015. And instead of having 2075 here on Friday and Saturday, I'm having 2240. So I get those extra calories. The total amount of calories on average over the course of the week is still the same, about 2075. Right? But this adjusts my macronutrients just a little bit, brings my carbohydrates up to 36% total and my fats to 31 versus 34 and 33. So this is just a really simple way for you to think about, okay, if I want to keep my calorie target the same, which is important if you want to see that, consistent weight loss, but I want to be able to have a little bit more of a certain type of macronutrient versus the other. Here's one strategy that you could use to do that. Here would be another strategy. That would be, let's say I want to have more carbohydrates and more calories in general on my workout days, and then less calories on the days that I don't work out. Here would be another way that you could do that, right? On the 4 workout days, you'd bump your carbohydrate intake up, you'd keep your fats the same. On my non-workout days, I'd take away carbohydrates. I'd only have 150 instead of 175, and I'd back away my fat from 75 to 65. This brings your calorie intake down to 1885, and it brings your calorie intake on workout days to 2215. So this might be a good idea because it allows you, a lot of times when guys train, they just naturally feel like they want to eat more, right? It's like you just threw around some heavy weight. Man, I'm hungry. I want to eat, right? I want to have that big snack right after I train. Well, this is a great way to do it and still keep your calorie intake the same, right? So this is a great way for you to really sort of stimulate some muscle growth and at the same time still be able to lose fat during this time frame. So those are just 2 ideas for how you could potentially customize. There are endless ways that you could go about this, but the key is you spent all this time leading up to this customization phase, right? You didn't just go straight to this from, hey, I'm eating like absolute crap and I have no idea what I'm consuming or how much I'm consuming, to, okay, starting Monday, I'm going to be doing this customized phase where I have high workout days and regular days. That typically will not work. This is somebody who's spent the last 10 weeks, 12 weeks dialing in their nutrition, eating from the food list, measuring with their hands, getting their calories right, getting their protein right. And then only once they have their systems dialed in, now they start to go through this customization phase. So that's really important that you do that. Now, what happens when you follow this roadmap? Well, you know exactly where you can focus depending on the stage of transformation you're in. You really do develop a sense of go-to meals. So, it becomes something where you're never really all in or all out because you're just eating consistently from the same sort of menu of foods that you're eating. That's really the type of change we want to make, because in the end, you're probably not going to want to track food forever. I don't track food now. I don't track food unless I'm really trying to make a big transformation, but I eat mostly the same foods. And I also, from all the time that I've spent tracking, I know how much I need out of each of my macronutrients and from calories in general to be able to hit targets that are roughly close. And that's why it's pretty effortless for me to maintain the body composition, right? So does it work for others? Heck yeah, it does. Brian, this dude's 49 and 0.68 years old, and he's absolutely shredded. 6'3", 213, 9% body fat. That was his guess. And you can see that's probably about right. He was definitely shredded. My guy, Wim, this guy went to his doctor after being in our program for a year, and his doctor said, "Oh, you're sending me your 20-year younger brother today." This guy had actually had a heart attack in his 40s and got himself in ridiculous shape following the same exact nutrition progression. This is Paul. This guy said, "Hey, I found the guy that you conned into changing his life." You can see Paul here versus the transformation. This is about a 6-month, maybe 7-month transformation. Pretty serious change from following this nutrition and training system. And then here's my guy, Manny. Big change. Manny lost 43 pounds in 6 months, going from 249 down to 206 on his way to 190, just following this exact plan, doing the simple workouts, implementing the 3-phase nutrition approach. It works like a charm, and it can honestly work at any stage in your life, right? And if you keep going, if these guys keep going long enough, they're going to eventually see body comp like this, because it just takes time. It might take you more time or less, but the truth is anyone can get there. Now, I'm going to keep this part really quick because my daily habits were incredibly simple: hydration, steps, and sleep. So from a hydration standpoint, really simple. Half your body weight in ounces of water every single day. That's exactly what you got to do. So if you weigh 180 pounds, drink 90 ounces of water. If you weigh 250 pounds, drink 125 ounces of water. That's it. That's all you have to do from a hydration standpoint. Get yourself a big stainless steel and drink as much as you need to. If you're going through a big transformation, my recommendation would be to drink alcohol as infrequently as possible. Drink caloric beverages infrequently, if at all. Right? Stick with water, coffee, sparkling water. It'll make your life so much simpler. And if you need to drink alcohol, plan for it. Put it into your calorie intake for the day and make sure that you're not over consuming and adding those alcohol calories on top of your food calories. And once guys get into the habit of actually tracking their nutrition, tracking their calorie intake, what they find is they don't want to give up 40 grams of carbohydrates so that they can have a couple of drinks. They'd rather have the sweet potatoes and the rice than have the drinks. So that's why you get accountability there as well. From a cardio standpoint, a lot of guys think, hey, I need to do a bunch of cardio if I want to see weight loss, right? Well, nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, I didn't do any cardio at all. 10,000 steps per day is all you need to do. And when I was already relatively lean and I went down to the pictures that I showed you before, I didn't go for walks. I didn't have long walks because I was already lean. If I was somebody who was trying to lose 30, 40, 50 pounds, then absolutely I would throw 10,000 steps per day in. But if you're a guy who's already pretty lean and you just have some body fat that you want to strip off and you've been training consistently and you don't have a ton extra, you probably don't even need this walking. You just need to train and get your nutrition dialed in. It's that simple. But if you're somebody who does have a lot of weight to lose, then 10,000 steps per day can help you burn an extra 1 pound of fat every single week. And it's also way better for your mood and for your recovery in general. So I definitely get out there and get those steps in. We always say that the guys who walk the most lose the most. The last thing is the sleep and the weight loss. Now, I'm not going to go too far into this, but just know that if you're trying to get shredded and you want to be able to build muscle, then you have to get sleep. It's so simple. Obviously, a lot of fitness stuff touches on the need to get sleep, but here's one of the big reasons why it's so important. If you're not getting the right type of sleep, if you have irregular sleep and wake times, if you're feeling poorly rested, there's a serious reaction in your body, right? Your brain, your reward center for like carbs and sugary stuff goes way up. So you're making poor decisions throughout the day. Your hormones start to get dysregulated. Your cortisol spikes, which increases fat storage. Your insulin sensitivity goes down, which means you can't handle carbohydrates as well. Your leptin goes down, which means your sensation of being full is decreased. A hormone called ghrelin goes up, which signals hunger, right? So now we're hungrier. We feel less full. Our cortisol fat storage is up, right? So now you might start to see, oh, if I'm not getting the right type of sleep, my hormones are going to be out of whack, which means the same level of food intake for you might not be the same as it is for somebody who's getting high quality sleep, right? Because maybe their insulin sensitivity is better. Maybe their cortisol is lower, which means they're going to eat the same amount of food, the same amount of carbohydrates as you, and their body is going to handle it better and store it as muscle, whereas your body might store it as fat. All calories aren't created equal when we're not sleeping the same. The other thing too, in terms of a behavior standpoint, if you're getting poor sleep, you probably know this, right? You feel less motivated to exercise, less motivated to get out and get your walks in, less motivated to eat meals that you prepare for yourself, going after high sugar foods, finding yourself in the fridge late at night, finding yourself in the pantry late at night, having caffeine to stay awake late. And then that dysregulates your sleep even more, right? Because now we're eating late. We're having these foods that make us tired throughout the day. So we're less motivated. We're having late caffeine. So we're staying up late and we can't fall asleep. We can't stay asleep. This is a vicious cycle that leads to fat storage and poor nutrition. Whereas you clean your sleep up, you do things like not have caffeine after 2 p.m., turn your screens off at 9 p.m., maybe wear some blue blocker orange glasses, have the same bedtime every night. Try to get your room as dark and cool as possible. I actually wear blackout eye mask that I wear every night. Makes my room completely pitch dark. Even if lights are coming in from outside, it'll transform your sleep. I promise. It's totally worth it. And it'll make a big difference if you're trying to get the best results possible. Final part of the presentation, the part that no one will admit. This is the thing that the fitness industry does not want you to believe and does not want you to know. So if you made it this far, I want to pull back the curtain on the last bit. Where you are now, it might take you way, way longer to get the type of results that I'm showing here and the type of results that you're going to see if you look at any mainstream fitness, right? You look at Men's Health, you look at any of this stuff. It's all about, getting abs in 6 weeks, or it's all about these massive transformations in these short periods of time. And the truth is it's never, ever that simple. So this transformation, this happened in 2 months, right? But what that doesn't show is the fact that I spent the previous 11 years going from here to here, right? So it took me a long time to build the muscle and to build the habits and to get my body to this point, right? Even though that might not look shredded, right? To get to this point where I was only 5 to 6 weeks away from having abs like that. So you might not only be 5 to 6 weeks away. You might have a year, 2 year, 3 years worth of work. Maybe you've got 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. Maybe you've got 8 months worth of work that you need to do to strip the body fat off of you to even be able to start to see the muscle development. And then maybe you have to build muscle from there. It just depends on where you are starting, right? So what appears overnight oftentimes is not overnight at all. It just depends on how close you are to being what I would call shredded, right? So it might take you way longer, but what is your health worth to you? That's the big question that we like to ask every guy is, what is it worth to you? Do you need to be absolutely shredded? No, you don't need to be. But if you're here, like where my guy Mark was, 257 in January of 2023, And you go to 187 in March of 2024, is he shredded with a six pack? No, he's not, right? But look at the feedback. Thanks again for what you have given all of us. You truly gave my family their husband and dad back. Forever grateful, right? So was it worth it for Mark? Absolutely, it's worth it, right? Is it worth it to train hard, simple, and to follow that nutrition progression? Yeah, absolutely, because you can get results just like that. Was it worth it for my guy John, right? John saw this picture of himself and he said, it's time for a change. I don't want to look like this anymore. I've got the dad bod going. And he said, enough is enough. This is what John was able to achieve. Now, is this 6 weeks? No, absolutely not. In fact, these pictures are over a year apart, right? Now, if you see John after 16 weeks, he leaned out and he had almost a six pack, but he was kind of skinny at that point because he didn't have the muscle development. He hadn't spent the time lifting heavy weights. But after a year, he was not only able to maintain all of the body fat that he lost during that 16-week period, which is about 11%, but he also leveled up and was able to use those heavier weights that I mentioned before. So going from doing swings and get-ups with a 35-pound kettlebell to doing swings and get-ups with 106-pound kettlebell, 90-pound kettlebell, swinging 123-pound kettlebell, that's what allows John to go from this to this. It didn't take 6 weeks, didn't take 16 weeks, right? This is a full year transformation here. But was it worth it? Heck yeah. Right? It's hard to describe how much KT has transformed my life. The system just plain works. So absolutely is worth it. And was it worth it for my guy, Mark, right? This guy was 345 pounds in January 2023, 186 pounds in April of 2024. That's 160 pounds. So yes, we can confirm, right? He said, this is the best I felt my whole life. Lots of people say it, but I mean it. How much better I feel, what it has done for my confidence, and what that has done in my life, relationships, career, and everything. You got to understand that it's not just about getting a six pack, right? It's not just about looking leaner. This will transform your life when you start to train this way and you start to eat this way, because you will feel a sense of vitality that makes the body composition results secondary to just how much better you feel and operate in your life. So if you're somebody who is looking to make a change like this, if you're somebody who's looking for a six pack in 6 weeks, well, you might only be 6 weeks away. And if you are, then follow the nutrition progression that I laid out before. But if you're not, if you're somebody more like Mark, or if you're somebody more like John and you find yourself more than 6 weeks away, then we would love to help you, because one of the things that we do best is we help guys who are stuck, guys who are frustrated, guys who have tried everything and feel like nothing has worked for them. We help them simplify. We help them install a system that is proven to get remarkable results, that's been proven with over 450 men. And we guarantee results for guys in that program. We put them on the exact same progression that we put our guy Mark on. We put them on the exact same progression that we put our guy John on, the same one that we put our guy Mark on. So if you're interested, then click the link below to watch our video on how to lose 20 to 30 pounds in 16 weeks using the Kettlebell transformation system. It lays out the entire system, exactly how we do it, and exactly how it works for guys. And hopefully it's something that you're interested in. If not, go ahead and click the link below and download the free nutrition calculator and get to work putting this system into play into your life that I explained here today. So if you watched all the way to this point, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I hope you got something out of this video. And if you get great results in this system, just make sure to share it with us somehow on our social media. All right. Peace.